Hey guys, back again from Residentville, USA. So, I wanted to make another video about this idle saga on this Volvo, and this will be the last in the series of this idle saga because I'm happy to report I've fixed the idle on this, and it was something simple, but again it took me a lot of digging around to find out how to actually do this, and a little bit of experimentation. So let me recap what was going on, and I apologize I never made a before video how this thing was acting up. I forgot totally. I'm sorry, but take my word what was going on. This is a B230 FT turbocharged red block engine. It's about 175,000 miles on it. It's an 88 Volvo 760, which is just a nut market 740. Okay, well, this car was running pretty good as far as its general running condition. I had an oil burning problem that I resolved. I had too much oil in it, which was unrelated to the idle problem, but what was happening was this car would not hold a steady idle after you started it. Whether you started it cold or warm, most of the time it would just start. It started pretty easily. It wasn't necessarily having that kind of an issue, but it'd start and it'd run for a couple seconds and then it would just, oh, it's the phone. Hang on, guys. Okay, anyway, it would idle for a couple seconds and then it would just taper off and wick right down to nothing and quit. And you could have to restart it 3 or 4 times, and you could keep it, feather the accelerator, and it would stay running. And it was just like a carbureted car with no choke. It didn't want to just idle on its own until it warmed up, and then it would idle. But it seemed like the idle stabilizer was not doing its job. It wasn't trying to keep it idled up. And a couple times it really did something weird with the idle. It idle way up and hang and then come down and idle up and down, and all it's just doing some really crazy stuff. So in those 2 videos I've already posted, I should kind of detail what I had done to resolve that. And I checked the AC. I cleaned it, checked its function. It was working. It works fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not dirty. So I was confident that was not the problem. And then I'd also had done the base idle adjustment. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not an idle adjustment. That is actually a just the base throttle body adjustment. I showed you where I did the lock screw and the stud adjustment, and then adjusted the TPS back behind it. So I done all that, and it idled a little bit better, but it still stalled and acted up and a bunch of dumb stuff. So you know, I'm just not going to put up with that on a car this nice. I'm just not going to deal with that. And let me interject this right now, that the thing about these cars is this uses a what's called a Bosch LH 2.2 fuel injection system. And as far as the way the system is designed and the way it functions, there's nothing unusual about it. It just uses a mass air meter, which they call it air mass meter, I guess, just to be different, but that's it right there. It's a 007 Bosch mass air meter. And it uses an oxygen sensor back on the back. It uses a crank position sensor, which is in the bell housing of all places. 4 fuel injectors, a throttle position switch, idle air control, fuel pressure regulator, temperature switch, temperature sender, you know, to tell the computer. And that's about it. This is your basic fuel injection system, so there's nothing unusual about that. The only unusual thing about it is that there are no self-diagnostic features into this system at all. There's no check engine light to pull codes. So if, you know, I'll just tell you this right off the bat, I think that's nuts. I don't know why in the world they designed a fuel injection system with no diagnostic capability, but I guess that's how simple it is. You know Volvo, they think you never need to work on something. So anyway, you can't really diagnose these except by taking measurements and taking voltage readings and measurements and et cetera, and a little bit of experimentation. So did the AC, satisfied myself that was not the problem. Base adjusted the throttle position switch and the throttle body. I satisfied myself that was not the problem. I redid vacuum lines, checked every vacuum line, checked everything for leaks, on and on and on, and satisfied myself that was not the problem. So I was at a loss. I was like, well, I don't know what to do next. I've checked everything there is. Until I ran across a little nugget of information buried somewhere on a website, and it said that the thing you need to remember about these systems, these LH systems, is until the oxygen sensor warms up and it's able to go in closed loop operation, the thing you need to remember is that they depend heavily on the air mass meter for engine operation. So I thought, okay. Now I had known generally that these air mass meters, these older ones, you look at them and there's a little plug right here. This one's got a plastic cap on it, you can take it right off. But inside that plug there is a small screw right there. See that? And you can turn that with one of these. Now, let me tell you right off the bat, that I'm not going to do a very adequate job, I don't think, of showing this, because this car has another problem that's kind of, it's not rendered this is working. I can do what I'm going to tell you about, and I've already done it, but it's got a bad oxygen sensor. So normally this is what you call your CO, carbon, I'm not even saying it. You guys, I am not a chemistry guy, so you guys, you know what CO is. That's your exhaust oxygen content, I'm assuming. I know what it is, I just don't know how to describe it very well. So what this is, you do this in conjunction with, this car has a test port over here, test point. If you look back in your harness back here on these cars on the right side, passenger side, you're going to find, tucked back in there as soon as it focuses in, maybe. Come on, come on, come on. You're going to see a plug here that's got 2 wires in it. You've got one red one with a black tracer. It may be red with a white tracer, and then you've got one that's, I believe that's green and white. The red one, that's what you use. You ground that out to set your base idle. That disables the IAC. And then the green one, what you do is you get a logic probe, or you make a little test probe thing that you can find instructions on the internet how to do. And you connect that logic probe, or that little thing you make, the LED test kit thing you can make. You connect one side of it to that green and white plug, and then you connect the other side to the positive battery terminal. And this thing, if you're I almost said a bad word, if your SHIT is working right, if everything's working right, when this thing's in closed loop, it should, the light on your logic probe should blink, and it would mimic the switching of the oxygen sensor back there. Now, have I lost you yet? It lost me a long time ago, but that's how that works. And that's what you do is, this is your rich and lean adjustment for the air mass meter. It does not physically change anything inside the air mass meter. It's simply, and let me just see if I say this so that it makes some sense. It simply alters the way that the computer perceives the signal from the air mass meter. So what you do is, with the engine running and warmed up and hopefully in closed loop, see, that's the thing, you don't know if it's in closed loop or open loop or anything. You just take a guess at it. You hope it's working right. That's it. That's stupid. But anyway, this thing all hooked up and running and everything, you should be able to take this screwdriver and adjust that thing back and forth to get your blinks on your light. It's almost like adjusting the mixture screw on a carburetor. It's very close to that. You adjust it one way, the light will go completely off and not come back on. You adjust it the other way, it will come on and stay on. You want to get it in the middle where it's off and on, off and on, off and on. Well, this car won't do that because the oxygen sensor is bad on it. So because that's mimicking what the oxygen sensor is doing. It's switching between low and high, rich and lean, in a matter of speaking. So now that I've got that long-winded explanation out of the way here, what was going on with this car, why it would not idle right, turned out to be that somebody somewhere along the way had cranked this air mass meter adjustment all the way as rich as far as it would go. Why they did that, I don't know. But that screw was turned you know, it'll just turn, doesn't have a stop on it, but it just eventually stops having any effect on it one way or the other. So it was cranked way down. And so I just simply got out here and I thought, well, the heck with it. I got nothing to lose, so I'm going to crank this thing up, and it idled up and idled up and idled up and idled up. And let me share something else with you. Under here, I've already noted this, I think, on the video, but that little thumb screw, that's your... These cars, I'm going to tell you, these cars can confuse the heck out of you. You got a base idle adjustment, then you got that thing under there. That's your fine-tune your idle adjustment. So that thing, before I adjusted that at all, this thing, that would have no effect on anything. You could crank it all the way one way or the other, nothing. So when something like that happens, guys, when you have a carburetor or something even like this, that when your idle adjustment, like something that controls airflow, like it makes no effect anymore, usually you can consider that you've got you know, something that's not the problem, that's a symptom. You've got something else going on. So let's get to the point, shall we? So I adjusted this thing leaner and leaner and leaner and leaned it up without being able to fine tune it because my oxygen sensor is bad. And let's just say that it's cured all those problems now. And we're actually going to do a cold start test and show you how it's doing now. Now it'll probably start up and go dead since I'm doing a video, but let's hope not. It's been doing great. But all that went away. Now, if you're going to do this, you need to do it the right way. You know, it's not going to hurt to ballpark it, but I'd advise you to do it the right way with a logic probe and making sure this thing's in closed loop and your oxygen sensor's functioning. So I've got more to do on this. It's a Volvo. I've always got more to do. So let's crank this car up and see what it does. It's cold. Let me just show you, you know, hand on the turbo. It's dead cold. I haven't driven it since yesterday, so. It's a war, man. It's a war I have to win. It's a battle. It's me against the Swedish engineers. Okay then, well guys, I've got something extremely important to do now, so I got to get on with it. It's been nice talking to you on this fairly quiet morning for a change, and so please comment, rate, subscribe, ask questions. Love to hear from you. Have a good one.